Welcome back to the Tuesday weekend
Podcast
Welcome.
repaints the city right down to the orange roof on Howard Johnson's outhouse.
Yes, so I wanted to talk about chain restaurants and some of the changes culturally, the changes in how we eat that are a result of the kind of Anytown USAification of every place in this country, the very sameness. But I want to start by praising Howard Johnson and Jacques Pepin because he really did bring a higher quality at a minimum, but kind of that faux French for American palate kind of cuisine. And the obvious example I think of is the French onion soup. And really, it was Howard Johnson's that brought French onion soup across the country, and then it slowly degraded into, knockoff diner styles, and now sometimes it's, but there's also, I think, among a certain generation, an expectation of if you're at least this level of restaurant, you are going to have French onion soup on the menu.
Yeah, 100%. I've worked in places where no problem. I've worked in other places where what soups do you have? And you go through them and you can see they're just like they're waiting for a specific soup. And
Exactly.
9 times out of 10, if someone asked me, they would still, well, do you have French onion soup? And I'm like, I'm sorry, we don't have that this evening. And they were waiting. They were expecting to hear that being said, that's the soup we had that day.
If I am sitting there with that off-white mug with the brown ring on it, and Margie's refilling my coffee and she doesn't have French onion soup, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah, we had those exact things at the hotel. We actually still have them there. We had French onion soup on our menu last year, and it was honestly a legit good French onion soup. Jeez. Like they used the proper bread, the proper cheese, everything. It was fantastic. And then we took it off the menu because I'd sell out of it almost every night, I guess. That was a good reason to do that.
We need to do another soup episode. But yeah, absolutely. This is in no way knocking French onion soup as a whole because I love it. Especially when it is well executed. Even if you give me a B, I'll take it. I don't need the highest quality. Well, as I'm saying that, no, give me the good shit.
Yeah, no, you want the good.
What am I talking about?
What are you talking about? I don't want the crappy one. I want the good one.
I want the good one.
And when it goes, if you see it go by, you're like, I'm not ordering that.
Right. Whereas sometimes you see it go by, it's like, wait, stop. 2 of those right now.
Yeah, just start it.
Hold my everything else.
I know it'll take 15 minutes. Just cook the damn thing. Like you said in the chains and stuff, like I kind of just said as well, is the timing of how long meals take and how long the food takes. The food timing really hasn't changed much at all.
No,
the food it takes the same amount to cook.
It still takes 4 minutes to drop a basket of fries.
Yeah. No, I mean, it takes the same amount of time to cook an 8-ounce filet medium well that it did 20 years ago.
Yes,
using the same exact oven and everything. It's not a lot of advances, some, but not. But what I'm saying is the tables just take longer.
Yes.
Like we've talked about the whole urban legend of the videotape, the guys watching and seeing that. I mean, cell phones, these things, you're taking pictures of your food, you're taking pictures of each other. And I think that's great. But a lot of times you're just scrolling through Facebook, not touching your food too.
Right.
I see that a lot with people. I'm just like, I had a lady going through her phone and like she hadn't touched her drink that I'd put down in 20 minutes. It was just sitting. And I'm watching the drink get larger and larger because the ice is melting more and more. And I brought some food out for her and it was hummus. And it's a salt shaker pepper grinder. She wanted pepper. And she just started salting the hummus while she was looking on her phone for like 5 minutes. And I'm like, and she takes a bite. She's like, this is really salty. And I'm like, you just put salt. She's like, no. And the guy next to her is like, you were just salting your hummus that for like 5 minutes. The whole bar was watching you. And I'm like, yeah, people just get engulfed in these things and forget that time is going on around them.
Yes, absolutely. And
table turn was a big deal in restaurants 20 years ago. You wanted them in and out in a certain amount of time.
I was about to pivot to how being on your phone at the bar really, it stops the conversation from, that is part of why people go to bars. As you have said in the past, when we talk about automation in bartending, that the actual pouring of the drink is the simple part. It's the interaction that people are coming for.
I mean, and I can honestly see a future that there's just going to be a robot pouring drinks. That will happen, but
Oh, sure.
there used to be people sitting staring at their phone and drinking.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
exactly. With
basically I got to
the
get out of the
opportunity,
house to go do the same shit I'm doing in my house.
right. You can sit on your phone on the couch and scroll to your heart's content. There is another human person sitting right next to you, and you have an opportunity to, hey, maybe they're an asshole. Maybe there's somebody cool sitting next to you, or interesting, or whatever, like, or maybe you just have a conversation for the night. And by the time you get home, you've mostly forgotten about it.
Yeah.
Whatever, you still have interacted with somebody instead of just being on your phone.
Well, I mean, dude, there's like, I'm going to go to the bar after this tonight and I'm going to see specific people. I'm going to see my boys from Eddie V's down here on the waterfront. It's one of the best restaurants in town. They just got back from Carnival
Oh, fun.
in Brazil.
They
I
have to have
cannot
stories there.
wait to hear these stories tonight. It's going to be fantastic.
Yep.
And then I get to go down. I usually go down to the sports bar first that's down the street. And I routinely end up sitting in between Mike, who is always fostering a dog since Tank passed away, but really, really good guy, and Arnie, also really good guy. And one's left wing and one's right wing. And it gets better because they're both conspiracy theorists. It is a
Fun.
fantastic night of communication and listening to this stuff. And like the only reason we have our phones out is to look something up so that we know that it's true.
Sure.
Why do people pass that up to scroll through Facebook posts from 4 days ago? I just don't get it.
Yeah, the algorithm's not for you anymore anyway, so get off of it. Even though I'm guilty of it too.
Yeah, me too.
But still, but one of the other points that I wanted to make with chain restaurants, one of the big differences really is, in a lot of places, the local mom and pop places are closed. And in a lot of ways, they're not coming back. And, even we had here in Carson City, between December and January, we had 4 different restaurants close, one of which was actually the Buffalo Wild Wings, which surprised me a little bit that it wouldn't just hold out a couple of weeks to the Super Bowl, because you think that one day would probably
pay for a month.
be worth it for.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm not going to second guess that. But the other 3 were all locally owned joints. And it's just a lot of, as you said, a lot of pressures from other places. The not just grab and go stuff. People are cooking more. There's the delivery services. There's there are all sorts of options to eat now that are maybe better, or at least perceived as more convenient. But
yeah, but I disagree. I liked going into the red vinyl booths at Kitty Pappas's Steakhouse. That, I mean, just she passed away, but just recently closed a couple years ago. I liked going down and getting the fried chicken from Lee's Cafe with their potato logs, which no one else did, which were literally like eighth of a potato, but had a really cool breading on it and it was fried. It wasn't like thin steak fries. It's something I've never seen anyplace else since, but it was great to go in and like see those places and have that food. Sit there at the counter while you're waiting for the food, just like the Formica there, talking to the person, hey, what's going on? Oh yeah, did you hear about so-and-so's farm? I mean, I miss all that. That was so much fun.
Absolutely. Well, I will say, when I'm out on my long bike tours, I'm always hungry, and I can't travel on the interstate. When you're on the interstate in your car, you're stopping at the rest area, you're stopping at the exit, you're doing your business at the Hardee's, McDonald's, whatever, you're back on the road, you're going.
Yeah.
I'm always hungry, so as soon as I hit town, the first name of a restaurant I've never heard before, I'm stopping. The first local mom and pop joint that looks decent. Okay. I mean, don't get me wrong. I will walk into some greasy dive bars and order the burger because I've been riding all day and I'm hungry. And if that's my option, that's where I'm eating, and I'm going to enjoy it, damn it, because
And they're usually pretty good.
I'm hungry and everything tastes good. And, oh yeah, no, they usually, those places, everything's seasoned well.
Yeah.
Like that. I totally dig that.
On it, it's just like, that's a good burger.
But even if you don't do it on a bike or a motorcycle, even in your car, maybe get off the interstate when you're traveling and try to go through those small towns you've never been to before. And all right, see what's up. If what is there is a taco truck at the gas station, well, stop at the taco truck, see how it is. I mean, because once again, and I've said this before, I will say it again, you're going to eat over 1,000 meals this year. And all right, if one of them's not great, you're going to move on to the next one. It's fine.
Yeah.
But the other thing I will advocate when you're out traveling is ask the locals where to eat because they always have opinions on it, or they will at least tell you avoid this joint.
Yeah.
And I almost always take that advice.
Yeah. There's always the places I say, hey, just walk by, don't go in. It might look like fun or might look good. Just, I'm telling you. But I mean, I recommend places also. I recommend places I've been to.
Oh,
You
sure.
know, when some of them are chains, some of them are local, some of them are local chains. You know, there's kind of a little difference between like, you know, the 8 restaurant chain and the 300 restaurant chain. But I
Oh,
always
sure.
send people to where I've gone and I've enjoyed it and the service was good and the food was good. I'm not, and the downside is when someone says, hey, we're going to this restaurant. And I know that restaurant's okay, but they're excited about it. You know, they're like, hey, we come here every year. We come
Oh,
here, we go
sure.
to Ostie. And it's like, awesome, go to Ostie. And I'm like, not a big fan of, say, whatever Ostie is. And I'm just like, but I'm just like, yeah, it sounds like it's a great time. It's a fun place. You know, you guys have a good time. I'm never going to tell them, oh, it's bad, don't go there. Because they look forward to going there. They go there, they've been there before, they know it. I mean,
Absolutely.
and it's a local place and people like it. And people are like, hey, we're going to Ostie. And like, yeah, it's not
Well,
my cup of tea, but
I
I'm like,
mean,
yeah, have a great time. They're
I
happy.
would I would also say I would be lying if I told you that was going to go back to North Carolina and hang out for a couple of weeks and not visit a Bojangles at some point.
Yeah,
Of
no,
course I'm going to. So yeah, okay, there are some regional chains that, specifically also all right, when I lived in Wisconsin, did I eat at Culver's? No, not really. But now is that food reminiscent so very much of that college era like greasy burger that I want? Yes.
yes, yeah.
So
Anytime I went back to Salt Lake, there were always places I went to eat while I was there. I mean, I
sure.
made sure to go and eat in those places because they
Yeah.
weren't anyplace else.
Well, and really that's one of the difficult things for me in a town like Park City because I know 4 or 5 good places off the top of my head that I want to eat if I've got 2 days.
Yeah,
Where do I go? And that's not trying any place new.
right.
Well,
It's
and
just it's like,
and in a town like Park City, there's probably some good new stuff popping up. But again, that's where I talk to the locals, and maybe one of those meals.
I mean,
Yeah,
you're going to hit your regional things. The other thing too that's changed a lot about the chains is, and unfortunately, chains are the ones usually lead this part in the restaurant industry for others to follow in their footsteps and try to emulate what they are doing, and that is the low payment and now tip sharing in
yep,
full-on restaurants. Now, back in the day, you tipped a sub-server. So a bar back would be tipped by the bartenders. A busser would be tipped by the servers. To be clear, back then, the barbacks and the bussers were not making minimum wage either. They were making more. They were making like $5 an hour because their tips would be as much as the servers and bartenders. That's who you tipped. You didn't tip your door guy or your host, really. I mean, I always bought security meals, so I'm a little different, but you know, security made their money and they made tips up front as well. Host, same way. But as a coworker, you didn't tip them. You didn't tip the kitchen because the kitchen should have been paid. Now, and this is the Darden Corporation, which is basically Olive Garden and all that. They started this right before, I mean, literally the year before COVID is when they started doing it out here, where all of a sudden we're on an app and that app decides that I'm tipping the hostess this much, the bussers this much, whether I see them or not. And I'm on like a second floor of a restaurant. So all of them are getting tipped this much. I am tipping the dishwashers and kitchen. And then the bartender, which I was, is getting tipped out by other servers, but they lowered my tip out 4% to tip out these other places. So I'm doing the same amount of work I've been doing since day one and I started there, and I'm getting paid a lot less. Like when you look at, I'm supposed to be getting 10% and I'm
well,
getting 6.
and
That's a big difference. I mean, working service bar for $65 for every $100 of drinks I pour, or excuse
and
me, $6.50 for every $100 of drinks I pour. That's not a very good tippable wage, is it?
well, as I mentioned in the first block, I absolutely believe cooks should be paid more, but
I've
I
always said,
don't think it should come out of the pockets of their coworkers.
yeah, it's
But
like, so we're the face of the restaurant, and there's like, well, you make more money, and I'm like, look, and Josh can attest to this. There's a lot of cooks who do not want to talk to anybody.
yes,
I mean, there are some like Josh, for example, and I know a lot of other who'd be really good servers and stuff, but most of them are just like they don't want to go out. They think what we do is insane because we're actually talking to strangers and doing all this. I don't understand why they've decided, okay, you guys who are doing all this in the front, you're now paying everybody else. It's like for the tips that we earn for our service.
I also, as a customer, have specifically sent a tip to the kitchen.
Yeah.
I have been in parties where we have bought rounds for the kitchen. I think that's a good move.
That's cool.
But
And if they let you, yeah.
that is also me as a guest saying, I want to make sure that the kitchen gets tipped, but I'm still tipping the server that same amount that I would have because I want to make sure like they were part of the great experience I just had too. So I want to make sure they get compensated.
Anyone who goes to a sushi restaurant and doesn't realize that you tip more at a sushi restaurant because you are directly tipping the kitchen. I go to a sushi place there, I tip a lot because I know that they're giving that money to the chefs too. The sushi tip out is probably the only fair tip out that a kitchen gets, really.
Right.
And I think it's like 10%.
Exactly.
It's when I worked in a place, it was a bit of money. But they're literally making all the food. I mean, I get it, and every kitchen should be just paid that much. When we're well and gone, they're probably gonna get out of this tipping thing, and it's just gonna be like Europe, where you're a server, you're making 80 grand a year. And before everybody out there listening says, seriously, 80 grand? I'm like, yeah, 80 grand, easy. If you're going to a nice place, that's what you're making. You're not going to have your Chili's anymore. You're not going to have your Applebee's. You're not going to have your Olive Gardens. They will be around, and there'll be a counter ordering service where you'll walk up, put your order, take your number, sit down, and someone will just drop off your food. There won't be people won't be bringing you drinks. There won't be anything else. You just order it all right there. I mean, everyone who complains about tipping, if that's what you want, you are going to get that sooner rather than later.
Because the venture capital fund doesn't want to pay somebody to sit there and roll silver if, instead they could just throw some disposable plasticware into a bag and hand it off to you.
Literally, that's really much what they're going to do.
Well, okay, we're going to take another break here because there's plenty more to get here. But when we get back, we're going to talk some more about, well, hospitality and maybe a little bit about its resistance to unionization because we've almost touched on it twice now. But okay, we'll get back with some more.